Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swisspreneur. Today I'm meeting Thomas Sterchi. Thomas is the founder of jobs.ch, which eventually got sold to Tamedia and Ringier for over 400 million Swiss francs. Let's go and chat with him. Thomas, great to be here.
Good to see you, Chris.
Again. We are here in a very important location for you. You're living here in the upper floors. Can you tell us a little bit about the location, where we are?
It's our office building, actually, and it's an old factory, suntan lotion factory originally. And in the last decades, it used to host mainly advertising companies and also one business consulting company. And I live in this building on the top floor since about 13 years. And when this business consulting company got smaller and smaller and decided to move out, I had the chance to take the whole building over and set up our offices here.
And who is actually working here, and how many people?
We have about 60 people working here, and run 4 companies out of here, which are Teleboy, Cineman. 2 B2C portals are quite important in Switzerland. Prospective Media Services, which is a company that I founded with my original business partner already in 2000. It's a media software company in the human resources industry. And we also have the team of Zermatt Unplugged who works out of here.
Oh, okay. They are not based in Zermatt, they are based in Zurich.
Yes, our base is here, yes.
It's just a festival which takes place in Zermatt.
The festival, and we have, the co-founder that I had for the festival, he's a Zermatter, he lives there, and but he has his own company and he's responsible for the infrastructure and production. He's based in Zermatt, and of course we spend a lot of time in Zermatt also, especially the manager of Zermatt Unplugged is like on a weekly basis, he's up there.
Okay, so we will come back to Zermatt Unplugged, but maybe we can start with the question every startup entrepreneur would be interested, because almost no one had this financial success to selling a company in Switzerland to Swiss companies for that price amount, which was able to actually achieve, which you were able. Can you tell us a little bit how it felt and how this whole exit came along, and especially also how does that then in the end plays with private equity and selling a company to Tamedia and then Ringier eventually?
Well, I was not operatively in the company anymore since 2004, which is already quite a long time. And I had started new projects. I spent a lot of time in Zermatt at the time. And of course, I was still the president of the company.
Right.
So I was maybe spending a total of 20-30%. But there was a very good management team on it. There was actually 3 companies that we had at the time, jobs.ch. Then our original publishing company, Job Index, and the Prospective Media Services, who I still own the majority of. And the thing was that at the time we became, then around 2006, it became clear that we were the market leader in that area of online job market in Switzerland, and it's quite a big market. In 2000, for example, there was about 600 million spent by Swiss companies in recruitment advertising, which is a lot, especially compared to the population of the country. So everyone was aware that it's quite an important business that is moving from print to online. We had established as the market leader in that field, and of course there was interest from investors and interest from job market operators in other countries, and also some interest of the publishing companies to buy or buy part of it or buy the company. And at the time, I think management was sort of ready for a new owner. I was not so present anymore. I was running after my other new ideas, and then we decided to kick off a process. And we met with one company, was at the time market leader in the USA. We even flew there to Chicago. And after that, we decided really officially to start the process, which meant we looked at different M&A companies, mergers and acquisition companies, to handle that process for us, which we were aware that it would be like a 6 to probably 12 months process. We had a good team of lawyers on it. Our lead lawyer was also even a shareholder of jobs.ch. So we had a very good team working on it, and then we opened up for everyone who had interest and went through that process. And that was end 2006 and first half of 2007.
And what was your role in that process?
My role was to be the unguided missile. That role was actually assigned to me by our lead consultant from the M&A business.
Okay.
But it comes very natural to me because I feel that I'm quite a free spirit, and I tend to say what I think and act what I believe. So it was quite easy. But I was not very, it didn't meant a lot of work for me because, as I said, we had this M&A team. We had lawyers who knew our business very well and who we trusted a lot. And we had a very good management team who had to, of course, provide a lot of information. So the project was a lot of work, but the work was not really on me.
Right.
In the end, of course, the decision came down to me as being the main shareholder. But of course, also I had a lot of communication on that with my main partner, Matthias Zimmermann, who was my co-founder of it, and of course also the management, because it was clear that if we do sell, that it has to be the right decision for everyone, especially also for management, who clearly will have to stay on.
Right,
yes.
yeah. And did you, when you decided with Matthias to do that process, did you already know both that it will end in an exit, or how is it like?
No, it was not clear. It was also I didn't want to commit. When we had our kickoff meeting with the consultants and management, everyone on the table, I said there were 3 conditions, and one was I will not sell below a certain price. I don't want the strategy change, because I felt, like we were running around for a couple of years telling to clients and partners that's how we see the market. So we didn't want to sell and someone else says, no, it's like that. And we didn't want any people to get fired. So it was unlikely that we would sell to a competitor, unless the competitor would, send off his crew and just take us over. And that was the 3 conditions. I was pretty positive that these would be fulfilled, so that it would end in a sale. But I was unsure myself if I really wanted to sell until the very end. And it was always my attitude, we don't have to sell. It's also a great option to just keep the company, because the company obviously was very cash positive already at the time, was market leader in a growing market, so there was no pressure, no economical or financial pressure to sell.
Yeah, was that one of maybe the success factors, that you don't have to sell?
Well, it helps, of course, if you have a business that is cash positive, you're a market leader, the market is growing, you automatically have a lot of interested buyers,
right.
and that totally brings you in a situation where you can relax, or
you're
you can
at the steering wheel.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And how did you then finally decide to go? Was it Tiger Global, a private equity company, right?
Yes, Tiger Global Management.
Yeah, so you decided to go with them. What were the reasons to decide to go with them? And actually, you then, selling to them was not just a sell, right? It's when you sell, or when you have private equity involved, there is always a little bit money that flows into the company. Probably a little bit of money flowed to the shareholders, but then you go for a second exit, right?
Yes, but there was no money flowing into the company, because the company didn't have any need of money. So it went totally to the shareholders.
Okay.
Of course, management, who also had some shares, couldn't sell, only could sell a small part of their shares, and we other shareholders kept I think I still had 13% or something like that for a few years to go, and I still had to stay on the board for 2 years. That were the obligations I had. And the reason I think was Tiger, it had to do with the offer in the end. Of course, it had to do with the price they were willing to pay. And they were also willing to pay that price, and that was another reason why it was a good buyer, because they understood the business. They already owned 8 or 9 stakes, not majority stakes necessarily, but minority and maybe 1 or 2 majority stakes in online job markets outside of Switzerland. So they knew the business, they believed in the business. And it had a lot to do with this person who was the account manager responsible for doing this deal from Tiger's side, who was a very young guy actually, but very knowledgeable. I think he did everything right in that process, where there were a lot of other bidders, and in the end, he got what he wanted. He wanted to buy that company, and it was clear for management that he believed, he understood the business, he believed in the company, he believed in the management. He would let them alone develop the business. Of course, there would be goals. There would be budgets to be met, etc. But he would leave them alone to develop the business. That is also how it happened. So everyone was happy, In the end, Tiger was also happy because they knew when they bought. It's not one of the deals where you go in an early stage and then you hope to maybe make 30 times of what you invested. It was clear that was not going to happen. But then it was also clear that it's very unlikely that they're going to lose any money. So, it was safer, but something that's where they're not going to exit with a very high multiple, obviously.
So the question was more how many times can the multiple be, but not is there still a company? So it was clear that there will be a company. And and you knew that they will sell again, right? They were not planning on keeping it as a portfolio company.
It was clear that it's somewhere between 3 or 7, but probably more than 3 or 5 years, where they will try to resell or do an IPO, which they were looking at that also. At the time it was very close, I think, to an IPO at one point. Before then, Tamedia and Rinke bought it. And that was clear, yes.
And how was it for you when the phase when you were on the board for another 2 years, or did you even stay longer?
No, I stayed less.
You stayed less?
Yes, so because I think it was already when I got the first invitation to the General Assembly with the minutes of the meeting and the proposal of the board, and said, okay, but I was never even seen that. I didn't see it before, It was like, okay, fine, they can of course dominate and determine, but if you take all the decisions without even including the board, that doesn't make any sense. I stay on, which we then all agreed on,
so it was not
on a good
level.
On a good level, yeah. I even remained in touch with a guy from Tiger. Met him a few times after that, even in New York, where he's based, and that remained a good and friendly contact in every sense. So.
A great story. So. Yeah, it's turned out very well for you, but maybe we can start with the early life. Like, how did that build up to what it was, and how it built to what you are doing now as an entrepreneur? Because I think you are, and in Switzerland that's something that no one really talks about, but I think it's very important to have these role models. So you are an entrepreneurial role model because you do things and you achieve things. So maybe you can tell us a little bit, is entrepreneurship something that was there really early on in your life, or is it something that started to build at a certain point?
Well, entrepreneurship, maybe it started to build at a certain point, but I always like to create things or organize stuff, even when I was at the Boy Scouts or even in schools, we started projects and organized trips, and I always had a little bit the urge to create something and to be a little bit in charge of my own life, but also of certain things that I organize. So in that sense, that was maybe a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that you could detect in my early life. And after, I always had lots of ideas. And then at one point, it came to the point to say, okay, it's nice to have all these ideas, but at some point maybe I have to commit and really start realizing one of these ideas. And
Is there something you remember from your childhood where the first time, like, did you go to a market and sell something, or do you have some memory which you can think back of that you did some very entrepreneurial, a story you can tell us or something you can share?
well, stuff that we did at the Boy Scouts, but one that we did in the teenage years is funny enough with the founder of travel.ch, who's called Roland, and together we had that Row Mash Youth Club. Row stands for Roland, Mash stands for Thomas, and it was basically we were connecting people who are looking on different continents, who were looking for friendships through letters. I don't even know how you to say that in English.
Yeah, a pal and
because I think we've
a
forgotten
writing,
about. Yeah, we've forgotten about how
that was existing. Now we are
at the
just
time,
writing
of course.
emails. Yeah.
Exactly. At the time, there was actually some kind of a market that you were looking for, like someone to exchange your letters and so on, and we were sort of trying to become a hub for that. And at the same time, we were organizing trips, bus trips and so on. And that was when we met through the Boy Scouts, and it was maybe when we were 16 or so on. But we started to build that as a business, but it was of course only a very small business, but that was maybe the first sort of entrepreneurial steps we took.
Did you charge for connecting these people, or was
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How much did you charge? Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
But it was probably not much, right?
It was not much, but they had to put some, the dollars was a bill at the time, so they had to put some
dollars
things
in
the
envelope,
and then
send
these envelopes with these dollars arrived, which is somehow cool.
Okay, and probably it also inspired Roland, who then founded travel.ch, which also is a very successful company, and did an exit. So maybe we could say Boy Scout is a good place to start an entrepreneurial career.
Definitely. I would say I probably learned more at the Boy Scouts that helped my entrepreneurial career than in school.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Was there some special things you learned at Boy Scout?
Because
you still remember?
You can get into a leadership position, then you have a little bit of that competition that maybe when you run one little section, like you want to grow it, you want to raise some money so that you can do cool projects. You have to develop your social skills in the leadership, but with dealing the people around you and above you. And
what are the most important social skills you later on realized that was important to actually grow then a company? Or you still have these social skills, like working with others? Can you?
I think it's probably empathy. I don't even know if that exists in English. In German you say empathy.
Yeah.
Which to me has a lot to do with putting someone else's hat on, as we say in German. Also understanding what is the other person's point of view, and that whether it's employees or whether it's business partners or your clients, just to take another person's point of view.
Yeah.
And that is a social skill, in my opinion. It's probably the most important.
And probably you developed that really early on already, like at Boy Scout, when you had to make other people passionate about your projects and to sleep in the woods or build a fire or whatever you were doing, have to bring their passion. Then after you did school, you decided to do an apprenticeship, right?
Yes.
Yes.
This commercial apprenticeship, the KV.
Yeah, the KV, and you got into the publisher industry, right? And in 1993, you decided to start your own company.
Yes. Well, yes. In brief, yes.
And was that with Matthias?
Yes.
Yes. And what were the thoughts? Why did you start a company at that point? And how much, what were you doing at that time before you started the company?
Well, honestly, looking back, we were very naive. We were quite young, but that doesn't mean you have to be naive. But we were quite naive, which sometimes can help,
not knowing everything.
Yes, because sometimes you just have to get going and do something, and when you're in it, nowadays I think the way the startup work often is it's very different, but then some things also, of course, are much more technological than they were at the time. So we had this idea of this special print job market, which was called Job Index, and sort of an index that we did, which was abstract of job ads that appeared in all the newspapers. And then the user, which was not the user at the time, was the reader actually, was subscribing to the newspaper or was buying the newspaper at the newsstand. So that was the business case that we started originally in '93, and we just thought it was a fantastic idea, which didn't really work, and it was only because of the partnership of entrepreneur in Zug, a printer who believed very much in us that we could survive with this project over 2 years. But we started then to market for other publishers, job advertisements, recruiting advertisements, and we started to build our own specialized magazines on human resources market and the workplace Switzerland. So we just managed to get out of that original business that didn't work, but found new projects that with what we have learned, we could sort of grow and survive.
Why did the initial idea didn't work? What do you think?
It's actually hard to say. I've never so totally thought about it. It's in the end, the market just didn't work that way. You know, the job seekers were used to Tagesanzeiger. The employers put their ads in Tagesanzeiger, and that was it. You know, and I mean, I would say it's always very important to, you know, like analyze why does something not work. But I think we just made a lot of assumptions.
You didn't put yourself in these customer shoes we talked about, right?
Yes, maybe not enough, just not with enough experience at the time, or you know, not enough analysis.
Right. So that was like we talked about, or we didn't talk about failure, but we wanted to talk about failure, and that was actually like failing a bit at that point, right?
Yes, of course.
Realized that it doesn't work, but then you didn't stop doing anything. You didn't say, okay, that was it, I go back to my job. You reassembled and came out with new ideas. And like, where did you take the confidence or the energy to say, okay, this didn't work, if we twist it or tweak it a little bit, then it might work? Was that something which was just possible because you were together with Matthias, or is it something which is very much in your nature, or where did that come from?
Well, I think you always have the option, you know, to like look back and whine on what has gone wrong and why it has gone wrong, or you can look forward, and normally there are some doors that open, you know, and we have some experience or some know-how that you accumulated on that path of your company that might not have worked, but then when you look around with this, you know, it gave you some preparation, and when you look around, there are opportunities and there are doors that open. Say, okay, well, it didn't work the way I thought it would, but with the contacts that I could build with this business and the know-how that I accumulated on how that market works, maybe this can work, you know, and then maybe you find a partner and he says, okay, well, let's try that, which in our case was, you know, that we worked for other publishers and we marketed their advertising section in job recruit. It was not a huge business, but it helped us to grow and survive, you know, until other options opened up, you know. And at one point we decided, because there was like a yearly guide that existed on advertising agencies. It was called Portrait Schweizer Kommunikationswirtschaft in Switzerland. And we said we're going to do the same on the human resources industry, on all the headhunters. You know, the companies would pay, they would have to be selected, but then they would pay to present themselves. And the book would also be sold, and we managed to get Bilanz as a partner to promote the books, and we sold these portraits, and that was quite a good business And it was at the time when internet started. So we were thinking into, okay, how could we offer to our clients, the headhunters, what could we offer to them online? Because we said we're going to go online with that guide at the same time, and we want to give them something, some added value, and that's where in the end this job market idea came up.
Yeah, so it was not initially planned, it was actually a door that opened or a window that opened at a certain time.
Yes.
And then you realized, okay, that's now the way we are going. And when did you realize that there is such a big room behind this door? Like when did you start realizing, wow, that will now actually be our main business? At the beginning you thought, okay, that could be a feature or something. For an add-on for what we are doing, and then you realized, wow, there is much more. Like how did that come about? And
I think it was very early on, because when we were wanting to do that add-on, the first thing of course was to bring these portraits of the companies online. And then the second idea was, well, they can also publish their job openings online. And then we were thinking about creating a job market of our own. And we're talking to the founder of search.ch at the time. But he had decided not to use us, but a job market that already existed from Bern, was founded by a student and developed by one developer. And we connected with them and went together. And when he showed me for the first time, when he came right away, when I called him, he came to Zurich. And when he showed me for the first time the number of views that he already got on a very small job market that was not making any money at all, and but the number of views that he already generated on like maybe 150 jobs, I thought, well, this might really make a difference. This, for the first time, this might change this market, because the problem what we had with marketing these job ads with the for the other publishing companies is that the employer would not get enough applications. And of course, you know, even though our ads cost a lot less than maybe in Tagesanzeiger, in the end it was critical to have a big reach, you know, and to get as many applications as possible, or at least the best possible applications. And we couldn't really deliver that. And when I saw that for the first time, I said, with this number of views already at this time, this will work. This will bring applications, and this might change the market. And I think that was maybe in '98 or so, like 20 years ago almost.
Yeah. And did you already have jobs.ch at that point? Because how did you come to this domain?
The platform was called Swiss Web Jobs at the time, and was then taken over by us. It's a little bit of a complicated history, and then only later on we bought, or in the process of taking over, we bought job.ch and jobs.ch. We decided to use jobs.ch as
because there is more than one job, or
yes, exactly.
Probably there are a lot of jobs on the platform.
Yes.
And who owned it by that time?
It was an agency in St. Gallen.
Okay.
We originally wanted to do the project with them, but for some reason we didn't manage to put that on the ground together, or they didn't have the capacity really to do all the technical stuff because they had so many projects. Then we decided we take it over.
Do you remember how much you paid at that time for jobs.ch, for buying the domain?
No, it was I think it was 6-digit sum somehow.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. It was, for us, it was a lot of money at the time.
But you knew that it will be crucial to success.
It's not. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure if we. I think it really helped, and it made things faster for us. But it could also have worked maybe with another name. I think it was not. I think we should not overestimate the aspect of that name. But I think it did. I mean, it did help. That's for sure. But I couldn't say how many % of it is, or if it would not have been possible to become the market leader without that name.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but it was one of the factors. Can put it
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So in the end, I think it's incredible to start something and realizing that you are onto something, but then growing it and really making it a substantial business, I think that's the other very, very important part and probably the more painful part. Could you tell us a little bit when you realized, okay, this is now growing and we are successful here? How did you grow the company and how fast did you grow it?
Well, you know, I think often it's not the same person to really detect the opportunity and to set things up and really bring it on the ramp as then the person who actually develops and builds the business, you know. And I think I was very lucky to have a good partner with Matthias Zimmermann, who was my co-founder, who is a different kind of person with different talents and different traits. And then we also had a very good management team very early on for jobs.ch, who really very systematically and committed built the company. And I think in the end it's a bit the chemistry of the right people who make the difference, whether, you know, you're onto a great idea but then you lose it somehow, or from the great idea or great project and the great opportunity you can build it.
Mm-hmm. And it was never an option for you that you are growing the company. So you, at the beginning, you already were clear that you will bring it onto the ramp and then you will stand by as a chairman, which is a very important role. But you gave the others the freedom to actually develop the company. So, Matthias?
Well, I was the first manager or general manager, if you want, of jobs.ch. Mm-hmm. Or at the time it was not called jobs.ch. And then I moved on to be the manager of the holding company, because we had these three companies. Mm-hmm. You know, then in 2000 it was already three companies, and I went on to that. And the person was called Mark, who we employed actually as a sales and marketing director in I think 99. We made him to become the manager and CEO of jobs.ch quite quick, because we felt that he is really the right person, and it proved he stayed on as a CEO until 2 years ago with the company. So.
Okay. And how did you pick him? Like, how did you find someone like that? Was it pure luck, or did you had some strategy to find someone like? Because
no, it was
probably a lot of founders would wish to have someone who has these skill set. Because I think that what you're saying is very, very obvious. I think a lot of these people who have the ideas and come up with these ideas are often not the ones who can manage it, and the ones who can manage it are not the ones who come up with the ideas. But realizing that this is the way, a lot of founders don't do. A lot of founders stay on and start to manage their companies, not very successful. Sometimes because they don't find these people, sometimes they just don't realize. But was there... Actually, there are two questions coming to my mind. Maybe starting with the first one is, how did you find Mark, and was it easy to find someone like that, or did you have to do trials to find?
You know, you have to realize at the time, it was like 98, 99, we were at the Technopark. It was like in the midst of, the what we call the dot-com bubble. So there were a lot of people interested in going on board with one of these new internet companies and so on. And he was coming from the electronic media sales, and was already sales manager in a company at the age of 27 or 28, so pretty young. But actually, we had found him. We had given to one of the headhunters that he had worked with. We had given them an assignment to find key account manager for us, actually. And at the time when we did the assignment, we only wanted to employ one key account manager for the job market. And we ended up hiring, out of that one assignment, we ended up hiring 5 people. And one of them was Mark, because we realized everything would grow so fast, we would need more people. And there was so much interest, and they brought us really great profiles, great people. And some of them are still with jobs, you know. So that was that round of hiring was really super successful for us.
So you would recommend to startups to already go early on with a headhunter? to find these key talents, because it's so important to have these people.
Yes, yes. I think I would recommend if you have someone. If you have someone there that you can trust, because he'll also give you a bit of a sparring partner, because it can go so wrong, you know. Maybe you can even make some kind of a deal that you don't have to pay everything at the same time or whatever, or you can pay in shares. But it makes sense when you're not experienced and you don't find the right person in your personal environment. And the right person, you know, the question is, what is the right person? Because the right person is not necessarily your best buddy, who maybe is very qualified and has a master degree of anything, but ticks very much like you, because it's maybe a person who maybe will not become your best friend, but ticks differently than you. And then of course you have to have that overlap of interest, and also a good communication, and sort of stand for the same values, but it's good when you like function differently.
And if a startup now says, okay, I'm taking this this leap of faith to work with a headhunter, what should they look for in a headhunter? When do you say, okay, these are the ones? You mentioned trust. Trust is important, but if you don't know them, then you first have to build trust. So it's not something that comes right away to you. If I now would have a very important role for my company, and I would say, okay, I'm going to look for a headhunter, what would you recommend me if I'm looking for someone?
I think you have to, it really depends very much on the person, and you have to have the feeling that this person really understands you and what you are looking for, and you should let this person, let her define the assignment, you know, what it is exactly that she or he thinks that you are looking for, and then see, you know, if that is what matches your need. But I think it's important that you get the feeling that this person understands you and your company and what exactly you're looking for.
Great. And the other question that came to my mind was, how or when did you realize that you want to step down? And giving, it's one thing to have such talented people as Mark in your company, but then the other thing, probably a lot of these young CEOs say, no, this is my company, I'm being the boss, why should I give it to someone else? How did that take place? How did you to get that clarity?
You know, I think development in a company, but also in a personal life, it's basically about change, always. And I think stepping down is a very good thing. It's a very healthy thing. It enables change also for your personal life. And my goal was always to step down, not into retirement, but to become space to other things. It might not necessarily lead to more fortune. You know, honestly, if I just look at the fortune part of it, I should just have sold later. You know, but in the end, life, and I feel also business life, it's also not always just about the immediate fortune. You know, it's about sort of a longer plan. And I always looked at, even here with Tom Talent, you know, look at making myself disposable, not indispensable. Dispensable, I think is the right word. Dispensable and not indispensable, you know, because there's no point in running a company being indispensable as an owner or CEO. It's much better when you say, well, actually, in a way, I'm not needed so much. So you can really think about the future of the company. You can develop something new, or you can do something totally different again. I'm right now. I'm a little bit in a point here in this company, Tom Talent. I was for a month in Italy, and I came back, and my agenda is not full. I have a lot of lunches and dinners booked out, but during the day I'm not full with meetings. That's why I can take the time, sit here with you.
Right.
But I'm not full, and at first it felt awkward. I'm gone for a month, but I'm not busy all the time now. But it means that we're now at the point with our little group of companies here, where everyone has sort of arrived to their position, is doing their job good and well, and so it makes me a bit dispensable.
So you're not that much needed anymore, and you still have time for thinking about new things.
And it feels a bit awkward, but it also feels good, because it means that we've done a good job together.
Right. But I think that's maybe one of the other skills you have, that you build a company not around you, that you are building a company for itself. There is not much Thomas in that company, but there is like the company, if you look at jobs.ch or Tom Talent and all the different platforms, they are like independent of your person.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's something which is a very, very important message, and you designed it that way. You don't want to do it differently because you are over and over doing it again.
I don't want it to be dependent on me. It's not fair. It's not even fair to the team. It's definitely not fair when you sell a company and then it you sell it. It's basically dependent on you. The buyer doesn't realize, and then the company
falls apart,
and people lose their jobs. I'm very happy and proud that jobs.ch, after I went out, developed so well.
Yes, yes. And how do you do it, like when you're building something like that with the shares? Because there are people, talented people coming in, and they probably want to have some kind of ownership. How do you do that then? Like, because if you build a company together with like a guy like Matthias, and you are the main shareholders, and then you're having a very talented team around you, then probably you will hit the point where they say, but we are mainly running the show. You guys are having your side projects and doing something differently. How do you do that they are motivated? How much can you involve them, and how did you do it at jobs.ch?
I think for most people, they're not necessarily just motivated by the money or by shares. I think they're looking for other things. They're looking for appreciation, they're looking for a good team, they're looking for something that fulfills them, where they have a certain freedom to bring themselves in, where they are respected. And of course the conditions and the money has to be right, and the shares can be part of a compensation. That is something that can happen. It has happened to some of the management in a jobs.ch at a time where we already knew that the company is worth much more than what we've given the shares for. Not the CEO very early on, he brought money of his own and built up a little position. But otherwise, it's not always an issue. It's not always necessarily.
How do you do it with your other companies now? With Tom Talent, for example, is it owned by you, or do you have like programs like stock option plans or something where you give away shares?
We have with Tom Talent, with my holding company, I have one partner of 10%. That's my CFO, who's been with me for 8 years. And I think not as a CFO, first as an accountant, and it became CFO. And then 4 years ago, I think we decided that he decided he wanted, I decided I wanted him to be part of it. And now same is going to be with our CEO, who's now with me for 4 years. We always said that it's an option with the CEO, but we never said that it absolutely has to be. And I think that's the right attitude.
Okay, to do it like later on, to really make sure that these people that they prove that they stay on, that they are valuable to the company, then you involve them, but not very early on. Yes,
because I think if their main motivation is just to get some shares, it's just not the right motivation, at least not for these kind of companies.
So you would advise that it's much better to create the right job for them, that they have a very happy, fulfilling job, and instead of giving them right from the beginning like shares and try to motivate
to create the right culture in the company, and to have the right goals for the company. And motivating workspace with exciting things to do in interesting markets. That's much more important. I think for me, money on shares was not always the main motivation.
Right. And
actually, it's never been my main motivation. Never. My interest was always creating something and building something. And the fact that became rich, that's actually, that was a Nebenwirkung. How do you say that in English?
Side effect.
Side effect, it was a side effect.
But you were building the company in this .com hype we had end of 90s, and then it crashed.
It's a pure coincidence. It's a pure coincidence that we were building a .com company, because I'm not a technical person at all. It's not like, hey, there's a .com hype going on, let's build a .com company. It was not at all like that.
But,
it was just like the natural evolution of what happened in our human resources market that we were working in.
Right, but you used the internet to build something which was more valuable or which was a better offering to your customers than the old newspapers were. So you used the internet as an instrument. It was not something which was very technical.
That could become potentially a valuable alternative to what existed with the print.
Right. But how much did then, when the bubble burst, it affect that you? Like, was there some customers that didn't book you anymore, or was there some insecurity?
No, the only thing that happened is that that the bank who had given us with a lot of PR startup loans, that they tried to cut these loans, even some that they couldn't according to the contract. That was the only thing that happened.
Yeah.
And the other bank had to sort of help us out, which they did. But at the time, this bank was just they just incentive their people to cut off any loan that they could, and that was the only actually problem that we faced.
Yeah, so with the customers and with the users, everything stayed the same, everything was growing, you didn't have any impact?
Of course the job market is something that goes with the general economy. So if the general economy is down, the job market is not very good. It's like with advertising.
Right. So you didn't have...
so that had a certain effect, but it was not.
But it was not that bad. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, maybe going now to, since we talked about the exit of jobs.ch and opportunities you now have because you made some money in that phase. Maybe now talking about what came after jobs.ch. What is the project that is the closest to your heart you have done the last 10 years?
There was only one other company except for jobs.ch where I was also a manager in the beginning and actually ran it, and that's Zermatt Unplugged, the music festival. Well, there was also the restaurants I had for a time in Zermatt that I ran personally. But sort of the bigger, it's only these two, of course, so I have a very special connection to that project. And it's also, of course, something that's very... something that you can really feel very much, especially when you're there. It's not something digital. It's a total offline experience mainly, and so that's very close to my heart. But I have to say, that we've done quite a few things in the last years. Financed it all ourselves. Not all of it, or actually more than half of it, was not successful in the end. What we are down to now is 5 companies. They're all successful. They all have a great management team, and I love them all in a way. If you can talk about love, and I love them all in a way the same, and I have a certain passion, a certain interest in all of these companies, and it goes very easy on me to help develop and facilitate the course of these companies.
Let's start with Zermatt Unplugged. How did this idea came about, and why does someone who has built a company like jobs.ch then said, okay, now I'm starting a music festival? How did...
Well, once after jobs.ch, my goal was not to try and go on to the next big thing. I think this is what happened to a lot of other entrepreneurs, and some even succeeded in building a next bigger thing, but that was never my focus. Like, I wanted to do things that I loved because I had the possibility, and I was given that possibility in a way. So I had started to spend my winters in Zermatt, where I ran a sort of a bar club, and then also a restaurant and another bar. It's a totally different life, which was an opportunity for me, thanks to what I'd built before with the teams. That I could, grab that opportunity and do that. It's also clear that I probably was not going to do that for the rest of my life. But Zermatt Unplugged evolved out of that club vernissage that we were running. where we were quite unsuccessfully putting all cultural programs and concerts. And then at one point, there was the decision either to just quit that totally or try to just make it bigger, better, nicer. And I came to this idea with that, let's do a music festival, but something that's sort of tailored to Zermatt. It's not a huge business case idea, I can tell you and everyone who's seeing this. It's a very difficult business because you depend on partnerships and sponsoring. That's a very difficult market, becoming more and more difficult. It depends on artists. There are a lot of very, very talented artists, but you depend on artists with names that are sort of bankable, that when you put them on your poster,
then
that
the people come.
That it brings people up, you need some headliners. They're getting more and more expensive because more and more of the money that they make, they have to get out of their live shows. And there are a lot of competitive events. But we try to build something that's sort of unique as for the location, but also for the positioning. We're the biggest acoustic music festival, so there's not just another festival. We have this unique location, we have this unique positioning, and I think that's what made it quite a success. I think it's a very well-known festival. It's a very loved festival. It's making about 5 million in sales now, which is also good for an event like that. But it's every year you have to put it together new. So it's a very ambitious business case. But fortunately, we have a very good and committed team on it, who also most of them work for many years on the project, and also with a lot of love for it.
So there are also other companies, you said. There are startup companies, like one was in Germany, which you started. Twisper was the name of it. Can you tell us a little bit about the idea of Twisper and what it now became? Because also there you said failing was a part of its story, right?
Yeah, actually the interesting thing with Twisper is it started as a very small project that we wanted to do, just 2 or 3 people, and then at one point it became sort of a startup of 30 people. And I had warned my former assistant, who became the manager of it, and myself a little bit of the Berlin startup market, where I said, there will be a lot of investors running around, bragging, but not investing their own money. There will be a lot of consultants who never created anything themselves, but knowing everything better, and there will be a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs thinking that their shit is gold and someone wants to take it away from them, And in the end, we tapped into
that whole thing.
Into that whole thing, and ended up being a 30-person company with something that we totally financed ourselves, but no proper business case, And I always say, I like building a company and not a startup. And with this whole startup fever, I think sometimes it's a little bit like, oh yeah, let's build a startup. No, you're building a company, not a startup. The goal is not a startup. So really think about what is the product you want to do. And I like when a company, you can build it step by step, not like you throw a whole lot of money in and then a few years later you find out if you wasted the money or the time. It's just something like smaller and step by step. And of course there are certain cases, like building a nuclear plant or so on is something, you have these huge investments, or if there's a P2C thing where you think you have to roll it out worldwide right away and everyone waited for you. This is of course money that takes up a lot of investment. But as we know, most of these things fail. Many more fail than succeed. Most people say 1 out of 10 succeeds. It's maybe even less. And if you look at maybe what the commitment is also of the startup entrepreneurs, who then in the end maybe have only a very small percentage in it, it's just a cycle and a game that partly I don't like so much. But building something, even finding ways in building it maybe without too much external money, finding solutions. Like we found solution with business partners, like printers, we said one point where we were growing and we needed some money to grow. We had we had about 300,000 or 400,000 worth in printing business, and we said we should find a printer who is willing to guarantee a bank loan for us for that money, and then we can use that money to grow. And we didn't find one who guaranteed the bank loan, but he gave us 360 days pay notice. So it came down to the same for us, and it gave us the possibility to grow the company and to be maybe a bit more creative, a little bit less greedy, and develop the things more step by step. I think maybe it will not be the next Facebook that you build that way, but maybe it will be a good company that's in a small segment, is a market leader, and then even something else develops out of it. I have a few friends who've built internet companies who just killed their Swiss market leading position by taking in investment and going outside of Switzerland and trying to expand a business. No one waited for you in another country,
Right.
This doesn't mean, of course, that if you create something in Switzerland that you can export. That isn't a great thing. That is fantastic. If you have a unique product and you have a copyright on it, and everyone needs it, and of course you should go outside Switzerland. But if you just have a service, and many others are providing the same service in other countries, then it's very, very hard. Yeah, you just kill your small good business with your greed.
Yeah. Maybe it comes all to the point where we can say that building a company should be the main task of a founding team and not of an investor. And when you really wait until you build the company and then you see, okay, we have these and that opportunities, that's the time when investors should come in. But what we see right now is that investors come in very, very early, because then they can take more shares for a cheaper amount of money. And that we see that very young founders, they don't have the possibility to get somewhere money. In Switzerland, living in Switzerland is quite expensive, so they have to get money somewhere. So I think that's a little bit the thing which should be different, that there would be more time to build a company, so maybe working part-time, building a company on the side, and then seeing, okay, now it drives value, it creates, and we have customers who are paying, and then building from that on, and then saying, when you have the metrics and know how your business model is working, then bringing the investors on.
That's what I think,
Yeah.
And of course, there are the Alain Chiards. And of course, there's, like in film business, there's a Mark Forster. So okay, well, follow your dream, go to LA, But for someone who's reached his dream, like Mark Forster, there may be 200 or 2,000 who went there and didn't make it. And for everyone like Alain Chiard, there may be also 2,000 who definitely didn't make it on that scale as he made it, So I think we have to be careful to not sell lottery, like we say, well, get into that, and then you can make it. Yeah, maybe 1 of 1,000 can make it that way, But if you're looking at it as you just described it, then I think it's just much more tangible. And that way, I think it's more likely you have success. But then maybe you're not the next founder of Facebook that way. Or maybe you can even become it, but it's another way, You build it step by step. It's just you're not a billionaire at 29, but that's fine. It's anyway the wrong motivation to become a billionaire at 29. It's not going to make you happier if you're unhappy in the first place.
And probably the ones who are aiming to become a billionaire at 29, they will never be it, because they forgot about building it.
Very likely.
Probably Mark Zuckerberg didn't say, I want to become a billionaire. Probably Mark Zuckerberg was building out of his dorm. He was building something, and then people around him realized, oh, he's really onto something, and then they started to invest. So even in his case, I think probably with throwing money at an idea, the idea doesn't get better. Probably the idea gets worse.
Not at all. And I found out myself I had quite a lot of money to play in the last year, or that I used to play, in a way. And I have to realize that even me saying that, I have to realize that money often doesn't make a difference, or at least it doesn't make a difference in the right direction if you don't really fundamentally understand the markets, and if you don't have the right people. Then you're not getting anything done just because of the money, because money is the worst USP. I always say, it's the most exchangeable thing, and that's what it was invented for.
Right.
So it's not a good USP to be in the business with.
Right, and you don't have to be creative if you have enough money. Like probably the most creative phase with jobs.ch was at this beginning, where you almost had no money, and if an investor would have come in 96 or 97 and give you a whole bunch of money, maybe you were still in this old business model and not would have found out what is behind this door, and then developed jobs.ch.
Yes, I would agree.
So we're already coming to the end of our discussion, but something which I really also would like to talk about is about how do you make yourself, like you are pretty sick right now, and you showed up for the interview, so that's a lot, thank you for that. But when you are working and when you have a lot of projects, how do you focus on, and how do you stay healthy besides today?
Well, I try, of course. With 30, I started to do a little bit of sports, so I do that. I do a lot of running, and I work out a little bit, and but then at the same time I have a lot of dinners and drink a lot of red wine, which also helps me to relax. And I think it's if you do stuff that you love, with people that you like, or some of them even love, it's a great thing to stay healthy and to stay happy, and it's a great privilege. And that's the life I can live, and that's the privilege I feel, and not the money that I've made,
So you ask always yourself, do I really love what I'm doing? And if you don't love it, then you stop doing it.
Yes, I don't, I've not done it so consequently, and to be very honest, I don't do it super 100% consequent even now, but I'm trying to do it more and more consequent. I think it's the way you put it is the right way. That's how it should be.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time, and especially because you were sick, or you're still sick, and you made it through the whole interview. So kudos for that, and I hope to meet again, Thomas.
Yes, sure. It was good seeing you again, Chris.
Thank you. Right.